صلى على محمد وآل محمد. صلى على محمد وآل محمد. Again, for the well-being of the mu'mineen and mu'minat of this community, also the mu'mineen and mu'minat who may be ill also in this community. Again, another loud salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad. And an even louder salawat for the hastened reappearance of Imam Zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم به نستعين. الحمد لله الذي جعل الحمد مفتاحا لذكره وسببا للمزيد من فضله، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، أرواحنا له فداء. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اعملوا آل داود شكرا وقليل من عبادي الشكور. صدق الله علي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وآل محمد. Inshallah, in this night and these next few nights, inshallah, as we give our salutations and send our blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad and his family, let us do so with a loud salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And I say this because we are basically in a time which we are reflecting upon the life of one of our great and dearest Imams, Imam Ali ibn Musa Ridha alayhi afdal salatu wassalam. His birthday is upon us, and so it is always recommended that when we give our salutations, we do so with a very loud voice, inshallah. So, the topic that I chose for this lecture, and inshallah if we have a chance beyond this to continue, is about maintaining balance, finding first and foremost balance, and maintaining that balance as Muslims in America. The reason why I selected this topic, on one hand, since my return, my visit that I've had since the beginning of Ramadan until now, many of our young Muslim brothers and sisters, they are inquiring about how they should live as Muslims in America, how to maintain their identity and their principles as believers, but at the same time engage in society. Questions: should I vote? Should I not vote? How much should I get involved? Should I only vote in local politics or not vote in politics? Or should I just simply sit and stay out of it? Don't do anything. So these are the questions that are on the minds of many of our youth and perhaps even some of our elders as well. That what exactly should we be doing? What position should we take on local issues and even international issues? How much should we get involved? So I thought this was a perfect moment to speak about this particular issue so that we can find balance, so that we can remain as Muslims that are principled and have a very clear principle in life, but at the same time to be involved. And the reason being is because when we look at the life of Imam Ridha alayhi afdal salatu wasalam, it is no question on anyone's mind his involvement with the society. And of course, as followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salatu wasalam, we all know the circumstances of those governments at that time, that they weren't the most righteous governments, although they claimed to be the government, the continuation of what the Prophet came to establish, but we know that that wasn't the case because they were murdering the grandchildren of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But yet we see Imam Ridha in the position that he was as an advisor, and perhaps also the successor, as Ma'mun had claimed. But even before the time of Imam Ridha alayhi wasallam, and after the time of Imam Ridha, we find that the Imams, they were all involved in the society. They didn't sit and were just silent. However, what or at least what I call their involvement and their engagement is, it is strategic engagement. Strategic engagement. And what they did is that they looked and they saw that what was needed for the society, what was needed for the well-being of the Muslims and believers, and they engaged to that capacity, that they were able to engage with the society, and at the same time they maintained their principles. One of the guidance that we get from the Imams, and particularly from Imam Ali ibn Musa Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam, with regards to this, is an encounter that he had with several of his, or a few of his followers. One of these individuals was named Ahmed ibn Umar al-Halabi, Ibn Abi Sha'b al-Halabi. So Ahmed ibn Umar al-Halabi, who was one of the followers of Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam. In fact, this Ahmed ibn Umar al-Halabi, he came from the Halabi family. And if we look at the lineage and we look at the Halabi families, they were quite often in support of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. In fact, according to some research, it is stated that Halab, which we all know where Halab is situated in Syria, that Halab, for a long time, it was predominantly Shia. They were followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam up until the time of the Ottoman Empire. It was the Ottoman Empire that actually began to put pressure on the Shias living in Halab, and some of them either began to leave or they began to go into Taqiyya, to the point that no longer Shiism was the dominant perspective or dominant, you could say, lineage in Halab. So Ahmed ibn Umar al-Halab, he comes from this family of al-Halabiyun, as is sometimes stated in the history. So he was definitely one of the companions of Imam Ridha alayhi wasallam, and he narrates riwayat and hadith from Imam Ridha. The other individual who went with Ahmed ibn Umar al-Halabi, because he states that himself and another individual by the name of Hussein ibn Thuwair. Hussein ibn Thuwair. Ibn Thuwair also, when you look at his lineage and his family, that Thuwair, or Ibn Thuwair, he was someone who was in the service of Ahlul Bayt alayhim wasallam from the beginning. Thuwair was actually one of the helpers and aides of Abu Talib alayhi wasallam. And then that family also remained close to the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal. So we see that these are two individuals who have long-standing ties with Ahlul Bayt. They came to Imam Ali ibn Musa Ridha and they said, Ya ibn Rasulullah, says, Ju'iltu fidak. He says, Inna kunna fi sa'atin min al-rizq wa ghadharatan min al-aish fataghayyrat al-halu ba'd al-taghayyir fad'u Allah azza wa jalla an yurudda dhalika ilayna. So these individuals, they came and they stated to Imam Ridha, they said that we were individuals, we were people, and of course Imam Ridha knows who these individuals are. He knows their family. He knows the service that they have provided for Ahlul Bayt. And so they said that, well, we were in a very good position. We were affluent, meaning that we were wealthy. They were perhaps conducting business. And of course, one of the things that we see during the time of Imam Ridha alayhi afdal wasalam, and this was a time in which the Shias, those who claimed to follow Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal wasalam, to whatever capacity that they were flourishing. And in fact, there were many uprisings by those who were following the Ahlul Bayt. Even those who, at one point, they took the son of Imam Jafar as-Sadiq, Ismail, as being the next Imam. He was supposedly the Mahdi, of course the Ismailis, but nonetheless they had respect for Imam Ridha alayhi wasalam, that they even looked towards him as a point of reference and guidance. But these individuals, they were uprisings, they had differences with the Abbasids. And this is one of the reasons for which Imam Ridha alayhi wasalam, he accepted the position that he did in order to remove some of the pressure that the Abbasid government was applying to the Shia, those who claimed that they followed the Ahlul Bayt. In fact, we see that in the lifetime of Imam Ridha alayhi wasalam, this is where one of the first actual government that claimed to be Shia was established. And this is in 786. It was the Idrisid dynasty in northern Africa. It was the first dynasty. And this was during the lifetime of Imam Ali ibn Musa Ridha alayhi wasalam. And what helped establish that dynasty was, again, some of the Shia who, again, they were affluent. They were sending their homes to other Shia who were poor, people who followed the Ahlul Bayt. And two of these individuals who were affluent was Ahmed ibn Umar al-Halabi and Hussein ibn Thuwair. However, what they came to the Imam with, and they were saying that, look, we were affluent, we had wealth, we were doing good business, but circumstances have changed, and now since circumstances have changed, we have lost some of our wealth. We are not as affluent as we were before. So they asked Imam Ridha, he says, make dua, ud'u, fad'u Allah azza wa jalla, and yurudda ilayna. يُرُدَّ ذَلِكَ إِلَيْنَا. So call and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He may return us to that state of affluency. At this point, Imam Ridha, he began to teach. He began to give these two individuals, but us as well, because we have inherited this wealth of knowledge of how to have balance in our lives, of how to be individuals who are strategically engaged in society. How do we maintain our identity as Muslims, as those who follow the path of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhim And just to summarize the points, because these are not points that the Imam he enumerates in this particular hadith. We find some hadith where the Imams or the Prophet at times as well, the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salatu wassalam, they say, well, if you have these three characteristics or if you have these three traits, then you are such and such. You are a believer or you are a mu'min. Imam Ridha, he doesn't do that here, but we can extract 3 points or 3 things from this encounter that Imam Ridha he had with these 2 individuals that will give us balance in our life. The first thing that he teaches and he gives to them, he teaches them how to choose and make their choices based on principle. Meaning that whenever an individual wants to make a choice in life, that choice has to be based upon a principle. And that principle is one's faith, one's ideology, one's understanding of the deen. Salawat. So he teaches him the first thing, that whenever you make your choice, it must be based and grounded in principle. The second thing that Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam, he teaches them is to be grateful. To be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To always thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what He has blessed you with. And the third thing is to have husnul dhan. To think and to have good thoughts about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning that your thoughts must always be positive towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That whatever situation He puts you in, never think negative. That, oh, why did Allah do this to me? It must be always, oh, alhamdulillah, Allah has placed me in this situation, whether it may be a situation of ease, whether it may be a situation of difficulty, always think positive towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So with regards to this first principle that Imam Ridha he teaches, he asks Ahmad ibn Umar al-Halabi and Hussein ibn Thuwair that when they request the Imam to make dua for them, that make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He returns us back to the state of influency where we are making money, where we are wealthy. So then the Imam, he asks him, he says, Ma turidun? He says, what exactly do you want? He says, what exactly do you want? He says, Hal turidun? He says, Ayu shay'in turidun? Takunu mulukan أيسرك أن تكون مثل طاهر وحرثمة وإنك على خلاف ما أنت عليه. He says, do you wish to be like Tahir and Harthama? I must explain to you who these 2 individuals are as well, because it's important. And the Imam, he's teaching them to make a choice based on principle. So Tahir and Harthama, these were 2 individuals, and Tahir al-Khuzai, as he's also called in history, and Harthama. These were 2 individuals who were very influential in the establishment of Ma'mun al-Rashid. They actually aided Ma'mun al-Rashid to establish his government. And I think most people, they know the history there. After Harun al-Rashid, his 2 sons, Ma'mun and Amin, they were to divide the empire. That's from Medina up until basically Baghdad. Amin was to rule, and from Khurasan, from Iran, up to Baghdad, was under the authority of Ma'mun. But then Ma'mun, he led an attack on his brother Amin, killed Amin, and then he became the sole Khalifa and ruler of the Muslim empire at that time. So two of the individuals who helped establish this was Tahir al-Khuzai and Harthama. But at some point after they had aided Ma'mun in solidifying his power and authority, Tahir al-Khuzai and Harthama, they became followers of Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam. So at some point they saw the truth and they accepted and they embraced Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam. To the point that even when we look up these individuals, the biographical information of Tahir al-Khuzai and Harthama, according to some accounts and reports, they say that they are from the Khawas, meaning the close companions of Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam. And it said that it is actually also Harthama who actually gives some of the reports and the accounts of what actually happened to Imam Ridha. That how he was poisoned. Because of course the Khalifa, they want to cover those things up. And they said Harthama was one of the individuals who actually exposed this, that what happened to Ali ibn Musa Ridha. So they were considered the Khawas, according to some accounts, of Imam Ridha. But the thing is, even after they embrace the path of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, they say, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. They continue to remain in positions of power and authority. But yet they were followers of Imam Ridha. One of the things that this indicates to some extent is that, of course, as Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam, that he accepted his position as an advisor or a possible successor to Ma'mun in order to alleviate the pressures that Ma'mun and the Abbasid dynasty was applying to the Shia, that also other individuals who had the capacity to do so, that they also stepped in and they also participated. They were strategically engaged in trying to do what is right, or to have whatever influence they could in order to protect the believers. Not simply the Imam, but even the followers of the Imam. However, this is perhaps not something that everyone could do. A person had to have the capacity to do it. And from the dialogue between Imam Ridha alayhi salatu wasalam and Ahmad ibn Umar al-Halabi and Hussein ibn Thuwair, it becomes evident. Why? Because when they request the Imam to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that we may again benefit from the wealth that we had before. So we may once again become very affluent. And the Imam, he pointedly questioned him. He says, so what do you want? Do you want to be like Tahir and Harthama? Do you want to be someone who is sahibul muluk, that you have authority, that you have governance over some place, and you're like these two? But with the condition, he says, وَإِنَّكَ عَلَى خَلَافِ مَا أَنْتَ عَلَيْهِ. You will be like that, however, what will you sacrifice? Will you sacrifice and give up what you're upon now? Meaning that you will give up your allegiance, you will give up your understanding, your principles, your understanding that the path of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad is the correct path. He says, so would you want that wealth and that authority and that governance with the condition that you no longer are the followers of Ahlul Bayt? So what the Imam is doing is he wants them to think. And think very well that if I come into that wealth, but at what cost? Should I do anything, even if it means that I sacrifice my faith, sacrifice my identity as someone who is a follower of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad? And then, yes, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And then come into that wealth? Or do you maintain your principle, maintain your identity as someone who follows the Ahlul Bayt? This is the question that the Imam he posed. This is the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. Ahmad ibn Umar al-Halabi and Hussein ibn Thuwair, they both stated, they said, Ya ibn Rasulullah, that if we were given the best of gold and silver with the condition that we leave what we are upon, that we leave from under your wilayat and your authority, he says, then we don't want it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. So that means that if we are to gain and to have balance in life, we have to look at what we're being asked to sacrifice. That if our deen, if our faith, if our identity has to be sacrificed in order to gain from this world, the question is it worth it? If we think it's worth it, then we've lost it. We don't have a balance. We've completely gone to one side. So that's the first question. Principle. Maintain your principle, understand your identity, and whatever you choose, keep your head up and maintain your identity as a believer, as someone who knows what truth is and follows that truth. The second thing is to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, I had a story about, and this is a true story, but I don't know if I would say it or not. I just actually came across this, but as one of the believers mentioned to me that, again, he had a choice to make as well. Yes, nice line to go and do his PhD, and, you know, again, maybe at the end of that road, could have been very successful, very wealthy. But what was to be sacrificed was perhaps his family. Perhaps his faith, his identity. So he decided, no, I'm not going to do that. And by not taking that choice, he maintained his identity, he maintained his faith, his belief. Whereas another individual, again, who was Muslim, was like, oh, no, I'll do it. He did it, and he sacrificed his family. His family was actually broken up after that. So it's very important to make our choices based on principle. The second thing that Imam Ridha, he teaches, is to be grateful for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has given you. And he quoted to Ahmad ibn Umar al-Halabi and Hussein ibn Thuwair, he quoted the verse wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he states, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Verse 7 of Surah Ibrahim. So chapter 14 of the Quran, verse 7. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that if you are grateful and you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then He will return. He will give you in abundance. He will continue to give you. And this is one of the things that we should never miss doing, that thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or thinking, as unfortunately, very weird story that I heard. This is, again, another true story that one of the brothers who was telling me just the other night, he said he came across a individual Muslim that, this brother, he was into real estate, and he sold a house to one Muslim brother. Then he found out, oh, this Muslim brother, he has a number of businesses. One of the business that he found out the guy has is he owns several convenience stores, and he's, selling wine and alcohol and all kinds of things. And he owned some club or something. And so this brother, he purchases. It's like, why are you doing these things? He was like, the Muslim who was selling these things, he was like, afterwards, I'll pray afterwards and make tawbah. So he's like, what? He was like, you're not praying? He's like, no. If I pray and if I thank Allah, and this is the words the individual uses. He says, if I pray and I thank Allah, He's going to take all of this from me. He's like, how can I thank Allah? I thank Him for that I'm selling this one. Allahu Akbar. The prime example of someone, again, losing their identity at the cost of what? Some wealth. And then assuming that they will be able to make tawbah. Death is something that comes upon a person. He never knows when he's going to die. So never forget to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what you have, whether it is great, whether it is an abundance, or it is little. But also know and realize that the reality of thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something that is almost impossible for us to do. Because how are we going to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for every single thing that He has given us? For our life, for coming into this world, our breath, every single moment of our lives. And this is something that, again, we learn from Ahlul Bayt, alayhim afdhalu salatu, as Imam Zayn al-Abidin, alayhi, he states, he says, كيف لي بتحصيل الشكر والشكر إياك يفتقر إلى شكر فكل ما أقول لك الحمد وجب علي أن أقول لك الحمد. He's praying to Allah and Sayyid al-Sajjadiyya. He says that, how do I actually thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is it even possible? Because at every time or whenever I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that thanksgiving is actually due a thanksgiving. Because to even say thank you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah has given us the ability to do so, or at least the comprehension and understanding to thank Him. So even for Him giving us that comprehension and ability to thank Him, I must thank Him for that as well. So every time I say, Alhamdulillah, or Lak alhamd, which is thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it becomes incumbent upon me to thank Him for giving that thanks. Subhanallah. So in reality, if you really want to look at it in its reality, we can't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way He deserves to be thanked. But by simply acknowledging what He has given to us and thanking Him to even the most minute sense that we can, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. That though we don't have the true ability to thank Him, by simply just even stating, He will increase His giving to us. Subhanallah. And then, this type of mercy, this type of blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us, that alone should make us want to, again, maintain our identity. That if we have to sacrifice this world to maintain our identity. Because whatever we get from this world is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not out of our own ability, purely our own ability. No, it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in order to maintain balance, we must understand and we must be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He also encouraged His own prophet, Dawood, and the followers of Dawood to have thanks, to be grateful. The verse that I recited in the beginning, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He states, اعملوا آل داود شكرا وقليل من عبادي الشكور. It says, labor gratefully, O followers of Dawood. For most of my servants, they are ungrateful. Surah Saba, verse 13. Chapter 34 of the Quran, verse 13. But whatever you do, whatever you put your work into doing, work hard and be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be grateful that He has given you even the ability to work, to go forth, to earn your sustenance. And be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's how many people are ungrateful. That they benefit from the sustenance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided for them, the strength that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided for them in order to work, but they don't even think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They assume that their ability, their strength is just from themselves. So labor gratefully. Ali Dawood, for most of my servants are ungrateful. And the last advice that the Imam he gives, he says, وَأَحْسِنُ الظَّنَّ بِاللَّهِ فَإِنَّ أَبَا عَبْدِ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ كَانَ يَقُولُ مَنْ حَسُنُ ظَنُّهُ بِاللَّهِ كَانَ اللَّهُ عِنْدَ ظَنِّهِ بِهِ. He says, and always think positively towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, for Abu Abdullah, meaning Imam Sadiq alayhi wasallam, he stated that how you think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what your perception of Allah and how you hold Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dear to yourself and in your mind is the same way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He holds you dear. And this reflects a number of hadith from Ahlul Bayt alayhim wasallam. One of them, as I believe, I don't want to make a mistake, but I believe it's from Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, alayhi wasallam, where someone asks that, or maybe it was Imam Sadiq, so he asks that, what is a person's position and status with Allah? How can we measure and how can we understand our closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So the Imam, he gave the response. He says, well, how close is Allah to you? He says, and if you understand how close Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to you, then you will understand how close you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this reflects the same thing. When you have husnul dhan, when you're always review Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a positive light, then you are also reviewed in a positive light. That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is close to you in your life, the most important thing to you in your life when you're making your choices, then you're also as important to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So maintain a positive outlook, a positive relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if you're going through difficulty. Sometimes we don't understand that that difficulty is a blessing. But if we went through our struggles and our difficulties, and then once we came out of that difficulty, and we actually examined what was going on and all the situation, the circumstances, then we will understand that no, actually that thing which I thought was difficult was actually a blessing. It was a ni'mah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had something greater in store for me that I could even perceive. But it comes, in order to understand this, a person has to have a positive frame of mind. Has to have a positive outlook. Because if you are always negative, then you will miss even the blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had in store for you. That was greater than what you even thought. Why? Because you were so negative and kind of harboring on that thing. Oh, I wanted this, this should have happened, this should have happened. I didn't get it. But Allah gives you something even better. And because you are thinking so negatively, you actually miss this thing which was actually better for you. Or you don't even comprehend that what you got in place was actually better for you than what you thought was good for yourself. So with these three things, first and foremost, making your choice based on principle, thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for whatever He has given you, and having a positive frame of mind, positive state of mind with regards to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you and how He interacts with you. Having those things, then you will be able to maintain balance in life, even living in America, whatever choice one has to make. Understanding how Imam Ridha alayhi wasallam, he taught his companions to be strategically engaged in society, again, based on principle. Not that you are engaged in society, whether it be some political system, and you throw out your principles. No, based on principles. Based on maintaining one's identity as a believer, as a follower of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. And it may entail what the Imam he explains hereafter, and I will just paraphrase this. One of the things he says, yes, at times you may have to, he says, be content. رَضِيَ بِالْقَلِيلِ مِنَ الرِّزْقِ قَبِلَ اللَّهِ مِنْهُ وَمَنْ رَضِيَ بِالْقَلِيلِ مِنَ الرِّزْقِ قَبِلَ اللَّهُ مِنْهُ الْيَسِيرِ. He says, perhaps you were like Ahmed ibn Umar al-Halabi, that yes, you were affluent at one point, and then, okay, your sustenance, your income went lower. But the Imam says, but if you are content with that, again, maintaining your principle, doesn't mean that you don't strive to be better or to get, no, you can do that, but you must maintain your principles. Doesn't mean that, oh, well, no, I shouldn't strive, I shouldn't try to get better. No, you strive, but you don't sacrifice your principles when you do so. And if you are content with that little and you maintain your principles, he says what happens that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He accepts from you what is easy. من الأعمال من العمل قليل من العمل. So if you do something simple, one good deed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He rewards you abundantly for that. Why? Because you were, on the other hand, you didn't sacrifice your principle, and you thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you dealt with that situation as it was dealt to you, as you lived it. Likewise, the Imam, he says, and this is important, as he says, وَمَنْ رَضِيَ بِالْيَسِيرِ مِنَ الْحَلَالِ خَفَّتْ مَؤُونَتُهُ وَتَنَعَّمَ أَهْلُهُ. Says that whoever is content with what is little and sustainable from that which is halal, that which is permissible. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make that person's burden, or He will lighten that individual's burden. You don't have to go and try to do things which are, okay, part of it is halal, part of it is not, part of it is permissible, part of it is not. So no. Whatever is simple and halal and is permissible. And what does he say, the Imam? He says, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will khaffat, two things. Khaffat ma'unatuhu. That his burden would be lightened. Particularly, not only in this world will his burden be lightened, but also in the hereafter his burden would be lightened. Then he says, Tana'ama ahlu. He says, his family will also benefit. This means that, again, not simply is it a responsibility of one individual in the family, but the entire family. Meaning that the family as a unit has to encourage one another also to live in that way, to live by principle. And if they do, then that family as a whole, its burden would be lighter in this world and the next world, and they will benefit. They will enjoy the pleasures, the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tana'ama ahlu. وَبَصَّرَهُ. And more importantly, وَبَصَّرَهُ اللَّهُ دَاءَ الدُّنْيَا وَدَوَاءَهَا وَأَخْرَجَهُ مِنْهَا سَالِمًا إِلَى دَارِ السَّلَامِ. He says also, if you live by those principles, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give that individual, give that family insight into the poisons and the diseases of this world and its cure. And He will take that person out of this world, out of this dunya, again, at the end of his life or her life, in a state of ultimate peace, unto the abode of peace. And that is important. By living by those principles, and I'll emphasize this because this will help us have that balance. بَصَّرَهُ اللَّهُ دَاءَ الدُّنْيَا وَدَوَاءَهَا. By living by those principles, those standards, you will begin to see what are the ailments of this world and what is its cure. If you know the ailments, the diseases of this world, and you know how to cure it, that will give you balance. Why? Because you will understand at that point how to strategically engage in society, as every single one of our imams have done. Whether it be like Amir al-Mu'mineen, that when his position was usurped, that he continued to engage and to teach people, moved the capital to Kufa, to the outskirts, whether it be having to make peace, like Imam Hassan, or standing in rebellion, like Imam Hussein, or to teach through the means of dua and supplication, like Imam Zain al-Abidin, or whether to be like Imam Ridha, as he did, strategically took a position. Why? Because he knew the ills of this world. He knew the ills of his time, and he knew how to cure it. So by living by these principles, inshallah, we will be able to maintain balance in this world and this life, maintain our identity as Muslims and believers, and walk the path, and walk the lifestyle of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And I just pray for the well-being of all of the mu'mineen and mu'minat, especially the mu'mineen and mu'minat who are suffering, and just anyone in this world who are suffering from oppression, injustice. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes the oppression and injustice from them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us insight into the elements of this world and give us knowledge of its cure, and more importantly, give us the ability to try to cure this world through strategic engagement and maintaining balance. Inshallah, also for the hastened reappearance of Imam Zaman and all of the mu'mineen mu'minat, all of the individuals who are facing oppression and suffering, let us recite Amma Yajib. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mudhtarra idha da'a